හරිම සුළුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Tuesday, the 26th of March 2024. Key policy rates. Sri Lanka aims for a targeted inflation regime of 4 to 5% as central bank reduces policy interest rates by 50 basis points. Hints of further reduction.
Inflation will remain well below our target range between 4 to 6. I think our expectation will remain around between 4 to 5%.
Governor stresses that central bank salaries will be addressed following the committee report. New job opportunities. Tax exemptions granted to Cogen Innovations. Cabinet approves to increase minimum national wage by 5,000 rupees. Digital transformation. President says digital public infrastructure key for Sri Lanka to empower citizens. Highlights goal of reducing multidimensional poverty by 2035. And forex remittances. Sri Lanka records $964 million in worker remittances over the first 2 months of the year as month-on-month numbers rises exponentially.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දිනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
This is Ada Derana First at 9 with Indivari Amuata and Mahish Johnny. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening, everyone. Welcome to First at 9 on this Tuesday night, where we bring you the latest from all around our country and also the world over. A very good evening, Indivari. As always, Indivari is busy.
Good evening, Mahish. Good evening, and thank you for joining us, whether you're joining us from at home or on mobile. This is First at 9. We're here to give you a comprehensive update of the developments in Sri Lanka and across the world. The policy interest rates and the central bank's targeted interest rate regime, as well as inflationary targets, take center stage of our news bulletin today. And the president also talks about the digitization of the Sri Lankan economy, drawing comparisons from India, where the Aadhaar project was implemented.
Indeed, apparently there is a lot with regard to the political situation here in the country. Elections, no elections, what kind of elections? This is a key question.
Presidential or parliamentary
or local government, who knows?
and with amendments to the electoral system,
exactly.
Whether it's going to affect current
but apparently
Justice Minister said yesterday, we announced this yesterday, I think, on the news, that the amendments will not pose any risk or change to the electoral system in the upcoming
What's
elections.
interesting, while that is happening here in Sri Lanka, all around the world, this is the Trump story is taking center stage again, because of the simple fact that yesterday's verdict was seen as something very a victory for Donald Trump, because he has been getting hammered from all across the democratic side of things, where they've been bringing a lot of legal issues to him. It seems to be that there's an attempt that they really don't want him to come back, because the fear is the fact that if he comes back, will he take revenge from everyone who...
But somehow what's interesting is we keep saying this, that Donald Trump is back.
He's a comeback kid.
Exactly.
He's a comeback kid.
And in China, Prime Minister is in China. Talks have been held with Chinese officials and the Premier on cooperation on the economic front. And the UN Security Council passed a resolution calling for the Gaza ceasefire, but again, with the atrocities of war.
All that apparently we have to bring it to you tonight. So let's get to our bulletin. We begin with that first story we mentioned with regard to the policy rates. Now, the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka reduced key policy rates after an assessment of current and expected domestic and international economic developments with a view to enabling the economy to reach its potential.
Now, the standing deposit facility rates and the standing lending facility rates of the Central Bank were reduced by 50 basis points each. Central Bank Governor Nandalal Veerasinghe, addressing media, said that the board is observing more room for interest rates to reduce in the coming months, adding that inflation is also expected to remain below the targeted rate of 4 to 6%.
Now, he also responded to the recent salary hike of central bank officials and confirmed that a committee would be appointed by the finance minister, who will provide a report within 4 weeks of the appointment, which in turn will decide the future actions.
The Monetary Policy Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka decided to reduce the standing deposit facility rate and the standing lending facility rate of the Central Bank by 50 basis points to 8.50% and 9.50% respectively. The board said it arrived at this decision at its meeting held on the 25th of March 2024 following a comprehensive assessment of current and expected domestic and international economic developments to maintain inflation at the targeted level of 5% over the medium term while enabling the economy to reach its potential.
අපේ පොලි අනුපාතය මහ බැංකුවේ පොලි අනුපාතය කරුණු සලකා බලා 20.50කින් අඩු කරලා තියෙනවාද?
After careful review, we have reduced policy rates by 50 basis points. There is more room for market rates to fall further. When it comes to treasury bills and bonds, we saw rates fall continuously, with an increase seen only in the recent past. One of the reasons for that is that in March, we issued the highest number of treasury bills and bonds in the history of this country. The government does not have major fundraising to do through bond issues. Therefore, we surmise that with the policy rates dropping, treasury bills and bond yields will also reduce going forward. When it comes to market rates, the average weighted primary lending rate has fallen to 11.4%. There is room for SME lending rates to further reduce, which we expect to happen.
ඒත් එක්කම වෙළඳපොළ පොලි අනුපාතය AWPR දන්ටම 11.4ට අරලා තියෙනවා. ඒක අනිකුත් SME lending වලට තවදුරටත් අඩු වෙන අවකාශ තියෙනවා. අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා තව අඩු වෙයි කියලා.
Current dollar rate and the inflation, what are your predictions for the next 3 months?
Inflation, what we expect because of the mainly of the base effect. Last 2 monetary policy reviews, if you can remember, we had the inflation path little elevated to what was realized. Actual inflation realization, the impact of that has not been that much, and also reduction in electricity tariff has also helped. In our projections, we see next 12 to 18 months, inflation will remain well below our target range between 4 to 6. I think our expectation it will remain around between 4 to 5%.
Is there a possibility that the single policy rate will be introduced soon?
I think we are working on that.
We have a small committee studying on that, and we will soon update on that.
What do you think are the risks going forward?
I think one of the risks could be global oil prices. So there are uncertainties in terms of projections where oil prices would basically realize. I think there are different projections. I think if that goes up, obviously still have impact on the cost recovery price in both electricity and price.
About this salary increment, what is the stance on that?
This salary revision was done in accordance with the existing laws. There's nothing wrong and it's nothing illegal. There was a discussion at the Parliament. What has given by the new act, we are more accountable to the Parliament. And Parliament has come out with some recommendations because of the accountability that comes with the responsibility as well. That's why we have to adhere to what has been recommended by the Parliament, where it clearly says appoint a committee to review this, and then after the appointment of this committee, within 4 weeks, they have to submit a report back to the Parliament through the Minister of Finance. That process will take place. So what will happen under the process, there will be independent committee appointed by the Minister. I think that will happen soon. Then we can see the outcome of that. There will be opportunities, I hope, that for all the trade unions, the management will make our representations, how we have done this in the past, how we have done this time, on the basis and justification. On that basis, committee will make a recommendation.
I reiterate that I will not submit my resignation on the basis of the salary issue.
New Delux pen
Dentalite Hygiene Plus. Refreshing walls for generations.
The Cabinet of Ministers agreed to grant tax exemptions for Cogen Innovations, a Colombo-based software and technology solutions provider, to enter the Colombo Port City under the Colombo Port City Economic Commission Act.
In another decision, the Cabinet has also decided to increase the national minimum wage by 5,000 rupees at the meeting held yesterday.
The Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal to grant exemptions or incentives to Cogen Innovations Private Limited under the provisions of the Colombo Port City Economic Commission Act and to publish an order to that effect in the Gazette. Cogen Innovations Private Limited, which specializes in providing technology solutions, has received the approval of the Colombo Port City Economic Commission and has applied for a designation as a secondary business of strategic importance. The company plans to make an initial investment of $500,000 and earn approximately $15 million within 5 years and create approximately 400 job opportunities within that period. The company is eligible for availing exemptions or incentives per the directives of the Colombo Port City regulations. The Cabinet of Ministers approved a proposal to invite expressions of interest and proposals from qualified domestic and foreign institutions to promote the registration of ships under the Sri Lankan flag and to select the most suitable institutions on the recommendation of the Procurement Committee, consequent to the evaluation of the proposals by a technical evaluation committee. The decision has been taken after observing that ship registration has become a major source of foreign exchange in the country's economy. The Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal to shift the daily operations and management of expressways to Sahasya Investment Limited from April 1st onwards in accordance with a formal management agreement and to transfer all the relevant assets to Sahasya Investments Limited within 6 months consequent to a legal and financial feasibility study jointly conducted by the Road Development Authority and Sahasya Investments Limited. The decision has been taken to efficiently manage the land owned by highways, highway loans and related staff more commercially. Cabinet also granted approval to instruct the legal draftsman to draft a bill in order to suspend the special commodity tax imposed under the Special Commodity Act due to various implementation issues. The minimum national salary has been established as 12,500 rupees per the provisions of the National Minimum Wage of Workers Act. A tertiary subcommittee comprising of trade unions and employers representing small and medium-level entrepreneurs, appointed under the recommendations of the National Labour Consultancy Board, has recommended to escalate the salary to 17,500 rupees. Accordingly, the Cabinet of Ministers granted approval to the proposal increasing the national minimum daily salary. Cabinet also gave its approval to implement the National Digital Economic Strategy for Sri Lanka 2030 with the aim to realise and achieve the expected results of the vision of the country and to create an economy earning higher revenue by the year 2048 that has been prepared with the guidance of eminences in the field and professional institutions as well as vocational boards. The Cabinet of Ministers also approved the resolution to instruct the legal draftsman to prepare the formal draft bill for the Economic Transform Bill that was given approval for preparation earlier this month, including the revisions forwarded by the Attorney General for presentation accordingly. The fundamental draft for the Economic Transformation Act has been prepared, comprising of necessary provisions to establish the main institutions, namely the Economic Commission, the Sri Lanka Zones of Investment, the International Trade Office, the Sri Lanka Economics and International Trade Institute, and the National Productivity Commission, including the preliminary objectives of the National Policy on Economic Transformation.
Now, President Ranil Wickremesinghe highlighted Sri Lanka's commitment to agricultural modernization and emphasized the country's goal of reducing multidimensional poverty by year 2035. Speaking at an event, the head of state stressed the importance of establishing a robust framework with accurate data to help identify individuals in areas most in need of assistance. On the topic of digitalization, President Wickremesinghe outlined plans to establish a new institutional framework to facilitate transition towards a digital economy. Measures will include moving away from the existing traditional structures and focusing on creating a digital transformation agency and an AI center. Speaking at the same event, Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Santosh Jha, revealed plans to launch a unique digital identity project which would further augment Sri Lanka's advent into a digital economy.
The seminar on digital public infrastructure, co-organized by the High Commission of India in Colombo and the Ministry of Technology, was held today in Colombo under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
The economic transformation will be firstly to an export-oriented, highly competitive digital economy, to a green economy. The discussion on the digital public infrastructure certainly is useful at this stage. Firstly, we are now discussing the new institutional framework for for a digital economy. We've been having IT councils and computer and information technology. We've had others. None of them really delivered the results. And it was a question of looking at micro projects and technical advances. So we are moving out of that. To build a digital economy, we are going into a digital transformation agency. The total transformation of digital economy, and together with that, the technical and the technological know-how that goes with it. There's also going to be another center called the AI Center, because digital transformation, after debate we decided that digital transformation must go hand in hand with artificial intelligence. This year we have set aside ₹1 billion and the work is starting. I want to bring the legislation to Parliament by June this year, the latest. Another is our aim of reducing multidimensional poverty. Our aim is that by about 2035, the latest, we show our multidimensional poverty. The number should not exceed 10%. So how do we do it? Then certainly we need this framework. We need this data to know who are the individuals we should target and what are the areas we should target. How does the education system perform? How does the health system perform at the grassroots? How are the basic incomes? So it's another important tool is the multidimensional poverty.
At the recently concluded G20 presidency of India, emerged the first ever global definition of DPI in the G20 New Delhi's Leaders' Declaration. According to that, it is a set of shared digital systems that are secure and interoperable, built on open technologies to deliver equitable access to public and or private services at a societal scale. We also see DPI now in our bilateral joint statements, as also in the India-Sri Lanka vision document adopted by our leaders during the visit of His Excellency President Ranil Wickremesinghe to India in July 2023. Both our leaders then agreed to leverage India's DPI in accordance with Sri Lanka's requirements and priorities towards effective and efficient delivery of citizen-centric services to the people of Sri Lanka. We have already rolled out the UPI in Sri Lanka last month, and we are now working with the government of Sri Lanka to roll out the unique digital identity project based on MOSIP architecture. And we strongly believe that, as in the case of India, this UDI is not an end, rather the beginning of the digital magic for Sri Lanka.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa, commenting on the school meal program initiated by the president, remarked that it was regrettable that only primary school students are recipients of the program. He went on to say that he would take measures to provide meals to all 4.1 million school children before the end of this year. Premadasa further said that measures would be taken to unify 10,126 millionaires from both Sri Lanka and overseas to provide funding to all 10,126 schools across the country.
The 87th edition of the Sakpala program to donate buses for schools was held at the Rahul National School in Godakawala, Ratnapura today under the patronage of opposition leader Sajith Premadasa. A school bus worth ₹5 million was donated to the school under the program. Further, a donation of ₹100,000 was made to the dancing troupe of the school in order to purchase necessary costumes.
No one has worked towards the development of the country whilst being in the opposition. We have changed that cycle, and there are enough donors to provide assistance to my programs. Everyone knows I'm not Mr. 10%. I do not have accusations of malpractice such as bribery and corruption leveled against me. I will establish a foster care system for all 10,126 schools. We will unify 10,126 millionaires both domestically and internationally for this. Apart from funds allocated for education through the budget, we will provide funds of those donors to all 10,126 schools. We received word about the program to provide meals to school children. However, meals are only provided for primary school children. How can we limit it like this? It is regrettable that this initiative divides school children to providing meals only to one group in a country where people face numerous hardships. Before the year ends, we will manifest an initiative to provide meals to all 4.1 million school children.
අවසන් වන්නට පෙර 41 ලක්ෂයක් පාසල් දූදරුවන් සියලුම දෙනාට දිවාහාරය ලබා දෙන්නට අපි කටයුතු කරනවා කියන එක මම මේ අවස්ථාවේ ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා.
Now, commenting on the upcoming elections, member of the United National Party Palitha Range Bandara highlighted that President Ranil Wickremesinghe should act according to the constitution of the country or risk facing dire consequences. This was amidst many views expressed in the political arena whether the presidential or parliamentary elections should be held first.
මහමැතිවරණයක් තියෙනවා නම් ජනාධිපතිතුමාට තියෙනවා විධායක ජනාධිපතිවරයා වශයෙන් ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාව අනුව පාර්ලිමේන්තුව විසිරුවා හැරලා මහමැතිවරණයක් පවත්වන්න. එහෙම නැත්නම් ඉදිරියේදී පැවැත්වෙන්නේ ජනාධිපතිවරණයක් නම් ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදුජන පෙරමුණ හැටියට අපි ගන්නා වූ ක්‍රියාදාමයේ කුමක්ද කියන එක රටට පැහැදිලිව හෙළි කරනවා. ජනාධිපතිවරණයකට කලින් මහමැතිවරණයක් තිබ්බොත් රටේ දේශපාලනයට හොඳයි කියලා අපි විශ්වාස කරනවා.
ඒක නේක ලිම් කරන්න පුළුවන්. නමුත් ඉතින් ව්‍යවස්ථාවට අනුවනේ ජනාධිපතිතුමාට කටයුතු කරන්න තියෙන්නේ. ව්‍යවස්ථාවට අනුව කටයුතු නොකරොත් ජනාධිපතිතුමාට මුක්තිය නැති දාතර ප්‍රශ්නයකට මුහුණ දෙන්න බෑ. ඉතින් ජනාධිපතිතුමා එතෙන්ට අහුවෙන්නේ නැහැ.
ජනාධිපතිවරණය අනිවාර්යෙන් එනවා. ජනාධිපතිවරණයකට මහමැතිවරණයක් තියන්න වෙලා නැහැ. මුදල් වෙන් කළත් නැහැ. ඉතින් ඒ ගැන උත්සාහ කිරීම නිෂ්ඵල කාර්යයක්.
ජනාධිපතිවරණයේද එහෙම නැත්නම් පාර්ලිමේන්තු මැතිවරණයේද කියන එක පිළිබඳව තව සාකච්ඡා මට්ටමින් පවතිනවා. හැබැයි ඉදිරියේදී වඩාත් හොඳට රටට යහපත් වෙච්ච මැතිවරණයකට ගෙනියන්න අපි පක්ෂ හැටියටත් කටයුතු කරනවා.
කිසි ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ නේ. අපි අනිවාර්යෙන් දිනනවා. මැතිවරණේ ඉල්ලනවා අපි දිනනවා.
ඔබතුමන්ලාගේ කණ්ඩායමක් රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්මයාට සහාය දෙන්න කැමති කතාවක් කියනවා.
මම එහෙම දැනගන්නට නැහැ මට. ඔක්කොම නිකන් කතා විතරයි. ඒක ප්‍රසිද්ධියේදී කාරුත් කියලා නැහැ නේද?
103 හිටියේ කට්ටියනේ. පළවෙනි වතාවට 120 ඉක්මවලා තියෙනවා. රෝණ විජේවීර මැතිතුමාට 104 ඉක්මව ඡන්ද ගන්න බැරි වුණා කවදාවත්. 103 හිටියේ කට්ටියට 120 ගැන 7 ගුණයක්ද දෙයියනේ. ඉතින් මේක දින්න වගේ දැනෙනවා ඇති.
During this weekend, Christians all around the world will be commemorating Good Friday and Easter Sunday, and accordingly Sri Lanka Police intends to implement a special security plan to ensure the security of churches across the country during Easter masses. Officer in charge of police divisions will visit local churches under their jurisdiction on the 27th and 28th of March to arrange the relevant security measures.
Officers in charge of police stations around the island will meet with local clergymen on the 27th and 28th of March to discuss security measures, whereupon they will draw up a security plan curated for the need of their local churches, which will be submitted to police headquarters. The officers in charge must inspect the churches personally. Police patrols and traffic control divisions have also been advised to focus attention to the security of churches. The police special task force will be deployed to churches that need extra protection. In extreme cases where police and the special task force are inadequate, the assistance of the tri-forces will be called for. Measures will be taken to identify any unknown persons that enter a church.
Minister Derana English directed the Inspector General of Police to launch an investigation into the reports of an assassination plot against Colombo magistrate Delana English. Meanwhile, the Criminal Investigations Department apprehended the manager of a bank in Negombo, suspected of misappropriating over 3.7 million rupees of the bank's funds. With that, here's a look at more local news across Sri Lanka in brief.
Minister Derana English directed the Inspector General of Police to launch an investigation into the reports of an assassination plot against Colombo magistrate Delana English. Information pertaining to the assassination attempt was received by a state informer who revealed that a suspect had ordered a grenade launcher for its dark purpose from a Sri Lankan residing in Dubai via a telephone conversation. Reportedly, the suspect had also revealed the location of the assassination attempt during the conversation. In the meantime, the Financial Investigations Division of the Criminal Investigation Department apprehended the manager of a bank in the Negombo area suspected of misappropriating over 3.7 million rupees worth of funds from the bank. After reappearing in court, the suspect was ordered to be placed in remand custody until the 4th of April. Meanwhile, in other local news, CCTV footage at a fuel station in Meegoda showed a vehicle driving off without paying after filling up with over 21,000 rupees worth of fuel. The same vehicle is reported to have committed the scam at various other fuel stations in Horana, Matugama and Godagama.
Welcome back. We take you to business news. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka today announced that the positive momentum from workers' remittances at the end of last year was maintained into the first 2 months of this year. According to central bank figures, workers' remittances were recorded at $964 million during January and February this year. Workers' remittances saw a significant year-on-year improvement of $6 billion tallied in 2023 compared to $3.8 billion earned in the year of 2022. Gross official foreign reserves improved to $4.5 billion by the end of February 2024, which include the swap facility from the People's Bank of China. The reserve build-up was supported by considerable net purchases by the central bank from the domestic foreign exchange market amidst increased foreign currency inflows compared to outflows.
Now, the Cabinet of Ministers yesterday approved a project to install solar photovoltaic power plants in 11 grid substations. The power plants will generate 70 megawatts with alternative current capacity ranging from 1 to 5 megawatts. Now, proposals have been invited once again for the supply of 19 megawatts for the remaining 6 substations. Subsequently, solar photovoltaic power plants will be established in grid substations of Ampara, Habarana, Koskama, Kurunagala, Pannala and Veyangoda to the respective investors.
Colombo stocks closed in positive territory today after the central bank announced the reduction in policy interest rates. Spiking sentiment hinging on hopeful lending rates being lowered meant positive trading today. The all-share price index climbed 0.90% to settle at 11,365.53. Every sector except the communication services rose during the day of trading today. Financial stocks, meanwhile, rose the highest, followed by industrial stocks. LOLC Finance PLC and LOLC Holdings were the top gainers on the index, rising 9.43% and 7.04% respectively. The trading volume on the ASPI rose to 80.7 million shares from 54.3 million in the previous session, while the S&P SL20 climbed 1.32%. Banking sector was the top contributor, while the diversified financial sector was the second highest contributor to turnover today. Foreign investors were net buyers, purchasing stocks worth 2.4 billion rupees, and domestic investors were net sellers, offloading shares worth 64.9 million. Welcome back. Very quickly before we wrap up, we take you to international news. Relations between the United States and Israel seem to have plummeted to a new low after the US on Monday allowed the United Nations Security Council to adopt a resolution demanding an immediate ceasefire in Gaza.
Now, following the US absentation, which allowed the adoption of the resolution, Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu abruptly cancelled the planned visit to Washington by an Israeli delegation, including to discuss Israel's offensive into the city of Rafah.
You can catch the very latest on our world news. That's all from us. I'm Indiveri Amwata.
Mahesh Johnny here. Good night.